6 minutes after 10 o'clock, Dumelang. Welcome to the second hour of the Clement Manyathela show. Thank you for staying with us here on 702, and thank you for your contributions on the 702 open line. Always appreciate that. Remember, at 11 o'clock, we're going to do our relationship feature, and today we're going to have a conversation with Lee Joy about quiet quitting in relationships and marriages. So don't miss that chat at 11 o'clock. But right now, we start with our Across the Desk feature.
Across the Desk
with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
So on our Across the Desk feature this morning, we are going to learn more about the work of company secretaries or corporate secretaries. I've invited two of them to come and join us here in studio. We've got Elsabe Kirsten, who is Old Mutual's Group Company Secretary, who, by the way, was the recipient of the Global Corporate Secretary of the Year Award for the CSIA Global Governance Awards ceremony. Elsabe, welcome to the show. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement.
And congratulations on the award.
Thank you so much, and morning to your listeners.
We also have with us as well Charmaine Manzini, who is Telkom's Corporate Secretary, who also won the CSIA Global Award for Rising Corporate Secretary of the Year. Charmaine, thank you for also making time. Good morning.
Thank you, Clement.
And congratulations as well.
Thank you.
When
so
were the
much.
awards?
On the 28th of February.
Yeah?
Yes, in Mumbai.
Yeah?
Yes.
How much of a big deal is this for you, Elsabe?
It's a big deal. I think it's a testament to a career for me personally.
Yeah.
So it's been a huge accolade. It's a huge accolade for Old Mutual as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I also stress the fact that we in corporate governance, it's not about us as an individual. It's about making sure the company is safe.
Yeah.
So as long as we do that, everything is good. So.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was huge, and it was nice to actually be privileged to be in Mumbai for the ceremony. So it was
That's amazing.
enjoyable.
Well done to both of you. We want to understand more, obviously, about the work of company secretaries. That's what we often do here on Across the Desk, invite different people from different professions to find out more about their work. I want to first establish, Charmaine, how long you guys have been in the industry. How long have you been doing this? And have you always wanted to be a company secretary? Did you even know what that is?
That's why I'm laughing. Not at all. So actually being in the company secretariat space is all I know. From the time that I graduated, I actually joined a graduate program.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't even know about the company secretarial role when I was interviewed. So you can imagine how that interview went, but I got the role, so hey. But yeah, I think I started in 2016. As a graduate, as I mentioned. And then from there, I think I saw value in it. I got interested. I was very deliberate also through the years in terms of developing myself. So I think that went well. And yeah, how many years later? Almost 10.
10 years later. So what did you graduate from?
I did my LLB in Mahikeng at the Northwest University campus in Mahikeng. And then I've also done my master's. And now I'm also a chartered secretary with the institute, the CSIA Institute.
Okay. And for you, Elsabe, where did the journey begin for you?
Yeah, so Clement, I guess when you're a little baby and you're in primary school and the teacher asks everybody what do they want to be when they grow up, company secretary isn't something that you put
it
your
is
hand
not.
up. So it happens by accident, I think. Charmaine says. I also studied law, and then I was one of those people who didn't want to do articles after law. So I was clear I didn't want to be a real lawyer.
Yeah.
Like do contracts and all of that
Yeah.
boring stuff. So I had a bit of a hiatus, and then I bumbled into a job at a smaller audit firm where we did let's call it director appointments and resignations and share transfers. Basically, all the company secretarial work that you would do as a junior in a corporate these days. And from there on, I actually started to like the company law bit of law, and it went from there. So you fall into this role sometimes.
How many years has it been now for you?
It's close on 30.
Wow.
Jeez, that's a
Don't
while.
call me old.
Okay, so what do company secretaries do? How would you describe like your day-to-day, like basic responsibilities?
Yeah. I think in trying to simplify it, I do believe we play the role of being the center of governance for companies. So our main stakeholders would be your board of directors and then obviously also your executive committee. So we support them in terms of the decisions that they make, making sure that they make the right decisions, follow the right processes, be ethical about their decisions, and also making sure that they're aligned to the law. So hence the law portion of it is actually also a center of what we do. So governance and law are very much strongly aligned. And then you would also then obviously prepare for meetings as well, making sure that, for example, decisions are not only made in a meeting room, there's also meetings that are made as a written resolution, which is usually over emails, and we use platforms for those things as well. So also making sure that we keep to the standard that we need to keep, even when we make decisions outside of the boardrooms as well.
Ah, I see. Yeah. So then you work both with the executives and the board.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And do you have your own team? How does it work?
Yeah, it varies. So it depends on how big the organization is. So in a big organization like ourselves, we've got a team of individuals who will look after the various companies. So there's a holding company usually, and then subsidiary companies. And we have a team of professionals who look after the corporate governance services of the various subsidiaries and then the holding company. In a smaller entity, you would find the company secretary being the lawyer, the compliance officer, the risk officer, and so a number of items that individual company secretary would need to fulfill and roles that they discharge. So it could be, you could be a one-man band or you could have a team of people. It all depends.
Okay. So in cases where there's conflict between the board and the executives, how do you manage that?
As uncomfortable as it can get sometimes.
Yeah.
Basically, you are the door. You are the line between the two.
Yeah.
And I think I've had a couple of instances myself where I had to handle conflicts. But I think one of the things that have helped me is the relationships that you automatically build within this role. You build a relationship with the board members, you build a relationship with the executive committee members. So whenever there is a conflict, I think that's what helps also, just to try and align them, because usually it's built from misunderstandings, also maybe misalignment in some points. So it's usually easy to resolve, but it's not easy to be in it. But yes, we do play that line as well.
Yeah. And your role is to ensure sustainable decisions in the end. So that's the focus always.
Yeah.
And when there are governance failures in the company, where does the company secretary's accountability begin and end? Do they call you first and say, we've got a problem?
So a governance failure happens not for just one reason. There's always a number of factors that will play together to facilitate, if one want to use that word, a governance failure. And our role is, unfortunately, to call out if rules are not followed and if decisions are not made in accordance with best practice corporate governance or within the rules of the company. And it requires us to be steadfast and calm and saying that we need to be within that framework that is set, because that is expected by the shareholders, who are ultimately the owners of the company and have asked you to fulfill that role, because our role is a statutory role that's in the Companies Act. So it's prescribed as a role that needs to be appointed specifically for that reason, to protect.
Fascinating. 16 minutes after 10 o'clock, we are on our Across the Desk feature this morning hosting company secretaries. And if you are in this space yourself, I'd like you to join our conversation, or maybe this is something you want to get into one day, and you want to know, what do I study? What do I need to prioritize in order to find myself in Charmaine's or Elsabe's shoes? Give us a call on 011-883-0702. You can send WhatsApps as well on 072-702-1702.
Aubrey Masango. Weekday evenings,
8 to midnight. Professor Jacob Mofokeng, criminologist from UNISA. Do you think that the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee has been successful in what it set out to do?
What we can say is that we saw that there was a false transparency. It successfully brought explosive internal policy, dynamic into the public eye. The existence of powerful shadow figures like Chief Mutsumi, whom high-ranking officers were initially too afraid to name. And then it made us to be able to ask, important questions. Who opened the door for Chief Mutsumi?
Aubrey Masango.
8 to midnight on 702.
702.
Stand a chance to win a share of a red-hot 3 million rand with the Hollywood Bets Spinner Zonke jackpot race. Enter the chase and enjoy a feast of fun where every spin could unlock riveting rewards. To start your adventure, bet 2 rand or more on selected habanero games every Wednesday, Friday and Saturday between 8:30 and 10:30 p.m. The racing revolution starts now. Dive in and prepare to take top spot. T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counselling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710.
Hey, today could be your last day stuck in the middle of taxi mads and 4-4 overload. Get the Haval Jolion Pro Limited Edition from only $4,699 per month with Apple CarPlay and a panoramic sunroof to start your journey to ultimate freedom. Visit gwm.co.za for T's and C's and to book a test drive. GWM. Go with more. Brought to you by GWM Finance, a division of Westbank and authorized financial services and registered credit provider.
Some moments are personal. Some spaces are professional. All of them deserve care. At Frond and Filigree, we create handcrafted floral experiences for life's meaningful moments and the places where they happen. From birthdays and anniversaries to hotels, offices and events, our bespoke arrangements are designed with artistry and intention. Because when flowers are done right, they elevate every moment. Visit frondandfiligree.co.za.
Zakes owns an electrical business that lit up the neighborhood. Literally. One small spark, one big legal nightmare. But he has public liability insurance from Budget. The damage was covered and his client sorted. Sharp, sharp. To get public liability cover, visit budgetinsurance.co.za. Budget Insurance, official insurer for good South Africans. Budget is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
702 was in conversation with pharmaceutical company Sanofi to find out more about respiratory syncytial virus or RSV and how you can protect our babies and children.
RSV is the respiratory syncytial virus, right? So as it says, it's a respiratory tract disease. So it is a common seasonal virus that affects the airways and the lungs, so your nose, your throat, and in severe cases, it moves down to the lungs, and that can cause pneumonia, it can cause bronchiolitis, right? And that's really severe cases where infants are hospitalized.
Visit primemediaplus.com to hear the full interview. 702 in conversation with Sanofi. Together against RSV.
Across the desk
with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
20 minutes after 10 o'clock on our Across the Desk feature this morning, I'm hosting company secretaries. We've got Elsabe Kirsten, Old Mutual's Group Company Secretary, and we also have Charmaine Manzini, Telkom's Corporate Secretary, and we're finding out about the work of company secretaries. We'll find out what's the most challenging thing about the job, what's the most exciting thing about the job. But as you've heard so far, I mean, this is a role that's considered central to good governance. In fact, under the Companies Act, this role carries serious legal weight, ensuring that companies comply with regulations, they uphold ethical standards, and operate with accountability. I've got some of your voice notes coming through on 072 702 and 702. I'm going to ask you, Charmaine and Elsabe, to just put on these headphones. We're going to play some voice notes now. We're taking your calls as well on 011-883-0702. Let's start here.
Hi, Clement. I just want to find out from your guests, how do they handle a situation where a company just do things relating to governance? It's just on paper, like for instance, some commitments and policies required for governance. they will be just on paper, but the practice are opposite of what the company is supposed to do to comply with corporate governance issues. This is just based on my experience and observations with most companies where they just tick boxes, but the practices are different. Bazooka from Pretoria.
Thank you for that question, Bazooka. So how do you ensure then that companies deliver on policy related to good governance?
Okay, so I think at the awards, they interviewed us post, granting us the awards.
Yeah.
And one of the things I mentioned about a characteristic of a company secretary is that you need to be brave. And brave means many different things. But in this context, I think being brave is about having the conversation that needs to be had. Because in most instances, nobody else will do it. So like I mentioned also before, it's also how you have the conversation with the people that you need to have it with. There's always a line that you need to follow, obviously, with all these conversations. But be brave. If you can see that something is not being done correctly or not being done at all, start somewhere. It could be maybe the next person. I know I mentioned that we also work with the executive committee, so at the time it could be maybe the CEO, the CFO, or one of the board members directly. Sometimes it's the person, it's a person problem. Then you go to the person. But how you do it is what matters, and I think that also comes with practice and also understanding the role that you play in the organization.
And what does it mean? Elsabe, I would imagine if there are companies that are great on paper when it comes to policy, but that policy is not being implicated, there are consequences down the line.
Yeah, definitely. And Clement, I would like to add to what Charmaine said is, and your caller, the easiest way to ensure that there is adherence to the corporate rules and to corporate governance is to highlight the fiduciary duties of the directors, which attract personal liability for them. And we've seen that in corporate scandals. They will end up standing in a courtroom somewhere. So there are serious consequences for directors everywhere if they don't adhere to their internal corporate rules.
I've got another question here from Anonymous, who says, good morning, Clement and your guests. Would you please ask if BCom Law graduate qualifies one to be a company secretary, or does it have to be LLB?
Yeah, I think the answer may vary based on what the company needs. As Elsabe also mentioned earlier, the size of the company also requires different things from the role of a company secretary. So in most instances, I've worked alongside very senior company secretaries who only had a BCom Law. But I think there's also a bridging gap now with the institute, which is the CGISA, that have now enabled us to go and write your exams and study via them to actually become a chartered secretary. So wherever there's a gap, there's ways to fill it. But I think it also depends on the needs of the company based on the role that they need the person to actually acquire into.
Okay, great. And then there's a question here about the biggest risks, from your observation, the biggest risks that companies face today from a governance perspective. Do you think there are specific ones, given our context in South Africa?
It sounds like an easy question, but it's actually very difficult. The biggest risk is non-adherence to the corporate laws and the governance principles that's outlined in various pieces of legislation and JSE listing requirements for the larger companies. So, and with that, there is legal liability for the directors, but I think the biggest risk is just non-adherence to those regulations, and it's the next to that is of course it is a very fast changing world. I mean, if we just look at technology and how we've looked at AI in the past 3 years since ChatGPT has hit our desks, the evolving nature of society and how we have also in a geopolitical instance where we don't know what tomorrow will bring from a political perspective. That is also a big risk for any company.
Sure, and I mean, we really don't know what could happen, not even tomorrow, in the next minute. And then what about because there are companies in South Africa that we see have improved. They take compliance seriously, adherence to the prescripts of the law. But from your observation, Charmaine, do you think companies in South Africa are improving when it comes to governance, or are there still some really major gaps?
I think there's been great improvement. I know even just 10 years compared to the 30, but 10 years ago when I started being involved in this particular profession, I remember I was asked to, go fetch dry cleaners at dry cleaning for one of, the people
as a
in
company
the room.
secretary?
Yes, So it from that day and what I see now, where you're almost the first person that the directors want to contact when they have a question, when they are unclear about something, you actually become their first line of contact within the company and even within their own space where they're unsure about their fiduciary duties, like Elsabe mentioned as well. So there's been a great, and I think they've been very intentional about evolving the role and letting the role evolve as well, is also what I've seen.
How do you manage difficult board members or dominant personalities, Elsabe? Is it a matter of involving HR, or, as Charmaine said, just sit down with the person and know how to interact with them at that level?
I struggle because I don't have that experience in my own role. But
you're lucky. Huh? You don't have difficult personalities?
No, and I think the key thing is just to remain steadfast, and there is a calmness that's required in our role. It doesn't matter in which company you are.
Yeah.
So I think the key thing is to remain calm and understand that there's a bigger picture always. The sustainability of the entity is what you are striving for.
Yeah. What would you say are the biggest challenges of doing this work?
I think managing the relationships across the board, because we deal with very senior people that are very knowledgeable in their respective areas. So having to have a group of people with different backgrounds and possibly different understandings, like she mentioned as well, that to meet a common goal, I think that's an everyday challenge. But we have things in place to make that easier, like policies, like practices, like the meetings that we have. I mean, we are privileged in that we are one of the people that actually help prepare the meeting documents for that section. So you also help in terms of making sure that we stay aligned, and I think that's the biggest thing. Make sure that everybody stays aligned, which gives less gaps for those things to come in between.
And for you, what would you say is the most difficult thing?
Yeah, my most difficult thing is the continuous legislative changes. So we've had significant changes over the past year or so. We've had a new King Code, we've had new JSE listing requirements, we've had changes to the Companies Act, and it is the changing environment. I think that's the key thing for me at this point.
Does that become your responsibility to make sure that you've got a finger on the pulse to check if regulations are changing? And
correct, and making sure that is implemented in the company and that the board is kept up to speed.
It's 10:30. Let's get the latest in Eyewitness News headlines. When we come back, we're going to come to your WhatsApps. I see more of your questions that are coming through on 072 702 1702 for the company secretaries that I'm hosting this morning on our Across the Desk feature. We'll start with them after the headlines. Spiso, good morning.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. The Johannesburg Metro Police Department says it will lay charges against one of its officers for using state resources on alleged crime boss KT Molefe. In a statement this morning, the JMPD says its investigation into Johannes Makgatle's conduct found that he was in breach of a vehicle policy. Makgatle was placed on suspension during the probe last year. 3 suspected money mules are facing charges of money laundering and fraud related to a 14 million rand dating scam in the Western Cape. Asanda Dwesini, Nompelo Fatman and Sean Lewis made a brief appearance in the Muizenberg Magistrates Court. They were arrested by the Hawks' Serious Commercial Crimes Unit. And a tropical cyclone has lashed Australia's northern tip, hitting remote coastal towns with the strongest winds seen for a very long time. The severe tropical cyclone made landfall at the northern point of Queensland state, affecting the coastline. And those are the headlines. This EWN and more at 11 or as it happens.
EWN Traffic. Well, traveling on the N12 as well as the R24 West, we still have got heavy traffic volumes. This is between Edenville Road and the Gilulis interchange. There's also queuing traffic on the N3 North just as you approach the Van Buren Road exit. Please be on the lookout there. In Devland, we've got delays on the Golden Highway. This is between the N1 and Union Avenue. Please approach with care. And in the city of Tshwane, some delays reported on the R80 South approaching the hairpin bend. This is due to the roadworks that are taking place along this route. Please be on the lookout. More updates coming up. Stay tuned.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app. Take a ride back to the greatest decades in music.
Because Saturdays on 702
are all about timeless tunes.
At 10 a.m.
Kenny Maestri sets the stage with the greatest hits of the 80s
and 90s. At 2 p.m. Hushaza Sibia keeps the nostalgia flowing
with more classics you can't help but sing along to.
Then at 5 p.m. Richard Mwamba
celebrates the sounds of the continent
with This Is Africa.
It's more than just music.
It's your Saturday wrapped in the sounds you love.
Only on 702.
702.
Let's walk the talk.
With Outsurance, saving on your car insurance feels like hitting every green robot on your way home to work. 35-year-old Zanai saves a whopping 1,180 Rand on her 2017 Mercedes-Benz GLA. Get a quote now, and if Outsurance can't save you money, just ask for 500 Rand or 1,500 Rand if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get savings or cash. SMS out to 45142. That's out to 45142. Outsurance, licensed to insure an FSP. T's and C's and information online.
Why worry about getting lost when you can discover so much more? Don't settle for a pavement 4x4. Get the Tank 300 from only $7,399 per month with off-road navigation that helps you stay on track. Visit gwm.co.za for T's and C's and to book a test drive. GWM. Go with more. Brought to you by GWM Finance, a division of Westbank, an authorized financial services and registered credit provider.
Mzansi, forget the weather forecast. Powerball and Powerball Plus are making it rain lots of cash this March with a staggering 155 million Rand in total guaranteed jackpots this Friday. Don't delay. Play Powerball for 107 million Rand and Powerball Plus for 48 million Rand today. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app or cell phone banking. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old to play responsibly. E2 is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
Gauteng is currently experiencing high water consumption. To avoid water interruptions, residents are urged to use water sparingly to allow equitable supply. Act now, save water. Every drop counts. This message is brought to you by the Department of Water and Sanitation, Rand Water, Gauteng Provincial Government, City of Johannesburg, City of Tshwane, and City of Ekurhuleni.
Across the desk
with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
It's 25 minutes before 11 o'clock. We're hosting company secretaries on our Across the Desk feature this morning and finding out more about their work, their responsibilities. We've got Elsabe Kirsten, who's Old Mutual's Group Company Secretary, and Charmaine Manzini, Telkom's Corporate Secretary. And I'm taking your calls on 011-883-0702. WhatsApp's on 072-702-1702. I've got a few questions here. On the WhatsApp line, Noni is asking, morning Clement, does the company secretary have a finger in the HR pie? For instance, policy formulation or implementation?
It varies. It varies, Clement, and it depends on how big the organization is again. So in certain organizations, the company secretary would be responsible for that kind of policy from a human capital perspective. In larger organizations, there are specific experts that does human capital for, they are the subject matter experts on human capital, and they will be responsible for that policy. Mm-hmm. So it depends. But in smaller organizations, traditionally, a company secretary would get involved in that.
And then another one here says, Clement, this is Tuli here from Pretoria. I'm currently registered with CGISA and preparing to write my board-level modules. I hold a BCom law degree and I'm very interested in building a career in governance and corporate secretary roles. However, I have not yet had the opportunity to gain practical experience in this field. I've been applying for committee secretary positions without success, and I believe that mentorship could significantly help me develop the necessary skills and industry insight. Could you please ask your guests to advise on how one might find a mentor in this field?
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good question, especially because I myself am this far because of different mentorships that I took on along the way. But I think, first of all, just in terms of getting practical experience, I mentioned that I started my role not necessarily as a committee secretary, but rather as a graduate program. So I started right at the bottom. And sometimes that's also what it takes. I mean, I know a lot of people are asking me, you did 4 years just to do this kind of, role, and then I understood where I was going. So also being able to take up even maybe junior level opportunities. But I think also in terms of her question about mentorship, sometimes it doesn't have to be an actual mentorship program. You meet somebody, which requires you to meet somebody. So networking becomes then an aspect of it. But you can, I know there's people that have mentored me without even knowing that they were mentoring me, only because I was watching them. So that's also something they can do. But also just reach out to people that you think you want, to follow them, to be inspired by them, to learn a few things from them, and then you can take it from there. But I know the institute that she mentioned also has mentorship programs in place, so she can also reach out for those as well.
Has that worked for you as well, mentorship?
Yeah, not formal mentorship, Clement. For me, as Charmaine says, one learns from different people, and our role is you need to know a little bit about everything. So one needs to be curious in your day-to-day business, and you need to be curious specifically when I was starting out as a company secretary, I used to read as much as I possibly can. I was trying to get as many mailers from even international corporate governance institutes, and there are heaps of them around. There's some of the large audit firms that have apps that you can download, and they will send you notifications about best practice governance. So you don't necessarily need someone. You can do self-taught through various pieces of information that lands in one's email. But the networking, which Charmaine mentioned, is quite an important thing. It's because you pick up little tidbits from people that's in the industry.
Yeah. So where is the best place for people to just try find themselves into to network, Charmaine? Where must they be playing?
Yeah. I think outside of work, because I was fortunate enough to have colleagues around me, but I think the institute is a great place. They have a website, and there's other, like Elsabe also mentioned, there's international platforms as well that you can play into. They actually hold networking events, but you also need to be able to pick up on some opportunities. I've attended some events that were not necessarily networking, but it was things that I was interested in. So also opening up not only for governance matters, because you need to know a little about something. So even I've attended finance events, I've attended tax events, because you need to know something about something in this role.
Do you need to know about what's happening in the world? Like, must you keep your pulse on the news and read?
Very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
All right. There's some WhatsApp voice notes that have come through on 072 702 1702.
Hi, Clem. Can you please ask your guest to elaborate the difference between a receptionist, and a company secretary? Because a lot of people think our role is as receptionist. No offense to receptionists.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah?
No, absolutely. And it's funny because, like I mentioned in my first interview, I think I went in there with senior company secretaries in the room. And when they asked me, what does a company secretary do? I told them, you make good coffee, you do printouts. Yes. So I understand, and I still have to answer that question even until today. So definitely different roles. I mean, like we mentioned, a company secretary is a statutory role. So it's very, for example, in the Companies Act, you can find actually the Companies Act does say something about what a company secretary is expected to do, but very different roles, because a receptionist is most companies actually want a company secretary to be a qualified somebody. It's not always LLB. I've met people that do that are actually chartered accountants, and they are also company secretaries. So very different. Company secretary is a very senior role actually as well, because you already, I mean, in my first role as a graduate, I was already attending board meetings. So very different. I think the best thing you can do is read up about it, because then you might not be able to say everything today.
Yeah.
But a company secretary is a senior role. You are required to know a lot about the law, to know also a lot about governance, and then also what's happening around the world. And yeah, I think.
Here's another WhatsApp voice.
Good morning, Clement. This is Minka in Mondio. I just wanted to ask the company secretaries, what are the junior roles that a person can get into right off the bat from having like an LLB before I get the CGISA certification? So what junior roles can I apply to that give me, just entry into this field so that I can scale as time goes on?
Oh, great question.
Yeah, most companies will advertise for something called a company secretarial assistant, which is, I mentioned earlier, I started off my career as where the only thing that you do is you would make sure that the share register is up to date, that directors are appointed, that the statutory records of the company is kept up to date. So it's a fairly administrative role at that point, and but there you learn the basics, and it gives you such a good foundation for being able to then advise as you progress through your career. So I would say that that's what our listeners, if they're interested in the field and they want to start out at, that they should look for.
Yeah. There was a question as well related to that about the growing career path. Someone was asking, is this a growing career path for young professionals?
Absolutely. And I think what I've loved most about this role, it is what you make it. So I've been in spaces where I took over and I saw gaps where I thought, actually I can get involved in this, sometimes even across different departments, because you know something that most of the other departments might not necessarily know. So you can even grow your own role within your own lines. But it's definitely growing. I mean, even within the same company, sometimes even like we mentioned as well, the size of the company also exposes you to different things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I've got some more questions from the listeners that I'll get to in a moment, but I want to ask you about the future of this profession. Where do you see it? You spoke a little bit about AI earlier, Elsabe, but where do you see the future of this profession of company secretaries?
Yeah, we talk a lot about AI and its impact on this role, and it was in Mumbai actually where one of the participants mentioned that AI can help us see whether there's compliance with legislation, so it will help you in that sense. But AI can't teach you ethics, which is a human thing. So we will always have that that we need to advise on, which is your more grey areas. So we think that the role will just expand because we need to govern AI as well. We need to make sure that that whatever we use in terms of AI is used ethically, that people don't take your data and go off and do something unethically with your data. So we believe that this role will continue to evolve.
How do you think we compare globally in terms of the standards of company secretaries?
I think we have one of the best governance frameworks, actually, which is held within South African, soil. So, a great. I mean, for example, in the global awards that you mentioned, I mean, SA took home three of those awards. Yes. So I think we're doing actually phenomenally. I think we're very proactive about it. And we have opened up the landscape where we are discussing this kind of matters. And people are coming up. For example, we have events now when it's a company secretarial event, but there's people, in different professions that also attend because they're interested in things that company secretaries talk about and what we do as well. Yeah.
All right. We're going to come back and wrap up with some more questions from our listeners. 072 702 1702 is where you can send your questions It's now going up to 13 minutes before 11 o'clock.
In life's most challenging moments of loss, compassion can be your greatest comfort. You shouldn't have to face the financial burden of losing a loved one by yourself. Rest assured, Clientele's funeral plans pay out cash within 24 hours. You can cover up to 13 family members on one plan, ensuring all your loved ones are taken care of, and 3 children are covered at no additional cost. With Clientele, you're not just buying a plan, you're also buying peace of mind. When the time comes, you will need to make important calls with your 200 Rand airtime you will receive when you claim. Plans offer double accidental death cover, as well as transport, grocery and unveiling benefits. Apply today, it's easy. There are no medical examinations and no paperwork. SMS funeral to 31586. That's 31586. Clientele Life is an authorized FSP and licensed life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
On the 23rd of March, join Freedom Park and the National Heritage Council as they commemorate the Battle of Kwanavale, a defining moment in Southern Africa's journey to freedom. Be part of a powerful day of reflection on resistance and liberation heritage, featuring a public lecture, wreath-laying ceremony, and messages of solidarity from African and international partners. Let's honor the courage, unity, and sacrifice that shaped our democracy. Freedom Park in Pretoria on the 23rd of March 2026. Be there and be part of the legacy.
Why speed through a midlife crisis on a superbike when you can get an SUV that gives you the same thrill and so much more? Don't settle. Get the Haval H7 from only 7,699 per month that gives you 170 kilowatts of do whatever you like. Visit gwm.co.za for T's and C's and to book a test drive. GWM, go with more. Brought to you by GWM Finance, a division of Westbank, an authorized financial services and registered credit provider.
Across the desk
with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
It's 12 minutes now before 11 o'clock. We're just about to wrap up our conversation with company secretaries that we're hosting on our Across the Desk feature this morning. I've got lots of questions coming from you that I want to put before them. And we're going to start with a question about whistleblowers. How do you protect whistleblowers while maintaining organizational integrity? Have you do company secretaries deal with that as well, where a whistleblower can approach them? Do you take it up to HR, or this is a matter you can deal with yourself?
I think it also depends on the policy that is in place. Most companies have a whistleblowing policy that is in place, and depending on where it is housed, usually I've found it housed in the HR department, but it does come to the company secretary at some point, maybe because it needs to now be discussed at a particular board committee based on their level. But I know we also report on whistleblowing reports at board level as well. So there is some kind of interacting between company secretary and the HR, but there's usually a policy and a procedure in place to guard those kind of cases.
Are there any reforms or changes, Elsabe, that you as company secretaries would like to see in how companies are governed? Like, are there gaps in the law, or do you think we've got quite watertight legislation?
Watertight legislation and watertight guidelines through King 5, I believe. I said in another forum that South Africa is at the forefront of corporate governance. The bit that probably we all want to see is that everybody adheres to that. And one of your previous callers talked about, and let's put it as lip service to those rules. And I think that's the important thing. But it's not just companies, it's every person in their individual life. Is about how you treat your daily life. Are you ethical in how you go about things? Are you perhaps purchasing something that you know you shouldn't be purchasing because it's resourced from somewhere where you shouldn't, in an unethical manner. So it's something that we all need to strive for, is to live ethically.
Yeah. Another question is about virtual board meetings and digital records. Are these creating any new risks or opportunities?
Yes, I think definitely both. Yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity in terms of being able to digitize, as far as possible. But obviously, the risk also in managing what people do with those platforms. So it's both a risk and an opportunity, but putting things in place like policies and procedures, I think helps almost streamline the risk as well. So it's not a risk that you can't manage, it is manageable.
What happens now, like, because since COVID, most of the board meetings, are they physical or most of them are still
No, most boards have reverted back to physical, but it has created the opportunity to, when you have an ad hoc meeting, to then have something on screen. So that's easier. In the pre-COVID days, we used to have telecons or video cons, so it feels all very remote and old now, but that's where we are at. The one thing that I wanted to add to the risks for virtual is about where the information and the data is stored. So it's very important that our listeners who work in this field are aware that what happens with the files, the digital files, is it within your own organization, or is it stored somewhere in the cloud? And if it is it ring-fenced? Because that becomes important in terms of the security of your own data.
Okay, so that responsibility for cybersecurity, who does it fall under?
Again, depending on the company, but you as the company secretary will need to make sure that you're comfortable from a risk perspective.
Okay. And then another one is asking, how does the job affect you at a personal level? What are the working hours like, the pressure?
How do I answer this? I'm 10 years in. I think the answers might vary depending on how long you've been in. But personally, I actually also had the same thing that Elsabe mentioned, where she knew she didn't want to be in practice necessarily. So corporate law, corporate governance was the best option for me. And I think I've managed it well. Also being able, like I mentioned, the role is what you make of it. So you have the opportunity to change certain practices that might be affecting you. For example, the long hours, you can find ways using digital platforms as well, integrating with people that you can help you get things done faster as well. So it is what you make of it, but I've been coping very well. I've been a student for the 10 years that I've been a company secretary, and built a family and so on. So it is, I think it's been good for me, yeah.
Okay, and for you, Elsabe?
Yeah, again, it depends where you end up, but it is a high-pressured role, and the long hours do come with the role. So it is important to make sure that you balance, and the only person that can make sure that you balance, keep a work-life balance, is yourself. So you need to be able to switch off. I, for instance, and people will be surprised, I don't have emails on my phone.
You don't have emails on your phone?
I don't have emails on my phone.
We must all learn from you.
So, because if I'm not in front of my computer, then if you really need to get hold of me, you can WhatsApp.
Okay.
So, yeah.
What happens though when there's an emergency and you're on holiday, Charmaine, with your family, and the board needs to meet urgently because there's a crisis?
I think there's different ways to manage something like that. One of the best things I've heard lately was we are not heart surgeons. So nobody's about to collapse. But I think also being able to delegate, I've always been fortunate to be part of a team. So you can always call somebody else to attend. But I think, like she said, you need to be able to balance as well. If I can't, I can't. And there's usually no fire at the time, but being able also to call upon a colleague or, the next person that you can also align with. Yeah.
Here's a WhatsApp voice note.
Hi, Clement. This is Zara Gassam. I'm the CEO of the CSIA, and we host the Global Governance Awards, which was held in Mumbai this year. I just wanted to say how proud we are of Elsabe and Charmaine, and also the other winners in the other categories of the award section. The work that these governance professionals do behind the scenes makes them the unsung heroes. And that work strengthens global governance. They serve as role models, and we celebrate them for advancing the standards of governance on a global scale. This profession is going from strength to strength. And I want to encourage all the young people to really look at the governance professional role. It's a critical role. It's a strategic role as an advisor to the board and also as a custodian of governance. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. What a lovely voice note. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Zora.
What advice, just as we wrap up, would you give to someone who's still young, who wants considering taking this up, or someone who is still new in the role and wants to get to a point where they can occupy the roles that you guys occupy?
Yeah, I think remain teachable at all aspects, but I think also, what is important about one of the things Elsabe said was it's in your daily practices. So how you carry yourself every day will impact how you fulfill any role, really. But specifically when it comes to the role of a company secretary, I mean, ethics is very important. It's the front liner, and it differentiates you as well if you're consistent with that practice. So be able to build yourself, I think, be deliberate with your self-development, and then also the networking opportunities that you can get, take them, and enjoy. I mean, life is short as well, so you want to be able to enjoy what you're doing every day.
And your advice, Elsa?
Yeah, it's about being curious. It's a lifetime of learning. You continue to learn every day in this role. You continue to learn about your own organization. You continue to learn about people. You continue to learn about your own sphere of reference. So it is about staying curious, staying up to date, and not being afraid of hard work.
Thank you so much for coming. I mean, all I've been thinking about while having you here is I don't know if we've got anything similar like this to government. I'm sure they go under different names, the professions, but I wish every department had a company secretary who can look at ethics, good governance, compliance, because that really is what we're struggling with in the public sector. Thank you for the work that you do, and congratulations on your awards.